Welcome to the Orange County Forum, where newsmakers keep you informed about local, national, and global issues that impact Orange County today.
All right, now on to our program, Housing Outlook 2014. You know, we have the bios of each of our speakers, and come on up and join us on stage here and help you get settled. But I want you to know that Emil Haddad, of course, the co-founder and president and CEO of 5 Point Communities, is a real estate management company that oversees master plan communities of Newhall, Valencia in Los Angeles, our own Great Park neighborhoods here in Irvine, Hunters Point, Candlestick Park, and Treasure Island in San Francisco. We have the founding partner and CEO of the New Home Company, Mr. Larry Webb, who leads the home building company's overall vision, strategic planning, and policy making. What I love about having these two unbelievably great leaders is in my own personal career, in my prior life, they both played key influential roles. I can remember, I was sharing with Larry earlier, I was just a baby lawyer, baby assistant general counsel at a home building company, and I heard Larry give a talk about what home builders do, the passion, the love for the industry completely inspired that next generation of young real estate professionals. And so it's great to have Larry here. And of course, what would we do without Emil Haddad's unbelievable strategic leadership, really bringing great project, a great center of Orange County to us all with our Great Park neighborhoods, working with our mayor. Thank you, Mayor Choi. Really appreciate it, and a great council. So an unbelievably wonderful project that will be a centerpiece to the county. And then, of course, we couldn't do this without Max Gardner, CEO of Orange County's United Way, who oversees operations and leads the 90-year-old, ready? 90 anniversary Health and Human Services Organization toward advancing its mission of strengthening Orange County by focusing on education, income, health, and housing, which are the building blocks of a good quality of life. Ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome our moderator and distinguished panelists as they begin.
Lucy, thanks for that introduction. And let me add my thanks to Larry and Emil for being here. So we talked 10 days ago or so, and I know many of you have heard Emil and Larry before, and we talked about how to make this presentation as enjoyable and fun and educational as we can for the group. And what we decided was that it would be much more enjoyable and engaging to have a dialogue and a conversation than it would be to have a PowerPoint and a series of speeches. And so we're going to undertake that today, and that means that you are an important part of this. And I see a lot of real estate faces around the room, and trust me, I know who you are, and if you don't ask questions, I will call on you to get you to participate in this. But we'd love to have a dialogue going back and forth. And both Larry and Emil are very comfortable, answering questions, almost any question you have, at least about real estate. Maybe a little politics, I don't know. But if you want to go there, that's okay. But let's make this a conversation, a dialogue as we get into it a little bit. And I will kick it off a little bit. What I'd like to do is to ask each of the gentlemen to kind of give you a quick update on where they are in the projects that are affecting Orange County and what's happening with their organizations and kind of where their business is taken. We'll go through a couple of questions after that, and then we're going to begin to open it up to anybody that has any questions, or I'll continue to fire questions at them depending on the participation. So, Emil, let me ask you to kick us off, if you will.
Sure. And let me just start by saying that I was also a baby inspired by Larry Webb in home building. So.
He thinks he's Chuckles the clown. Just give him, laugh with him. It'll make him feel better. It must be hard at home.
It is. Well, I mean, I'm going to focus on the Great Park neighborhood and what's going on over there. As most of you know, we started our sales program the beginning of October last year, and I think we're touching about 550 homes sold so far. Some of the builders have sold out, which is obviously great news. That tells you how much depth we have in the housing market in Irvine and in specific and in Orange County in general. And we are working very hard right now on land development and putting infrastructure in for our next neighborhood, which we're hoping we will have a grand opening mid next year for that. And we're looking at probably 15 products, introducing a little bit more attached. This time, the first neighborhood was all detached. So it's great, and I'm going to put a plug actually to the Irvine Company. We're fortunate to be in a market where values have maintained themselves because the market over here is controlled by basically the Rancho Mission Viejo and the Irvine Company, and that has helped a lot start from a point where we were not already in the hole like a lot of other markets. So that's been great. We also are hoping to start breaking up the runways this summer in preparation of the construction of the sports park. And our goal, assuming we can get all of our permits from the city, and that's actually for the mayor to listen to, we hopefully will start actually construction of the first phase of the sports park by the end of the year, with a goal to open our first phase, which will be the tennis courts and some of the soccer fields, by the beginning part of 2016. So we're in motion, and we have a lot of other things that we will be unveiling that I think are going to be very exciting. But in general, as I said, we're fortunate to be in a market that is extremely strong. The fundamentals are very good in Orange County and Irvine specifically, whether it's job creation, whether it's pent-up demand, and affordability, actually, to a certain extent, coupled with the fact that we are lucky to be in one of the markets that is attracting a lot of foreign buyers, mainly because of the quality of education in this place. So that's where we are, and cross our fingers and hope that the market keeps on making us look smarter than we are.
Thanks, Emil. Larry, how about you?
Well, for us at the New Home Company, we're in a very different situation than Emil, but we're both very young companies. We both started in 2009. I was a poor Lebanese immigrant, and I came over after the revolution and worked my way up the ladder. But what most people don't know, besides my Lebanese heritage, is for 2008, Emil and Mike White and a lot of the Lennar people worked together on the bankruptcy that eventually, the LandSource bankruptcy that eventually became part of the creation of 5 Points. So Emil and I have a long history that really goes back almost at least 25 years. And we had lunch yesterday on a totally different subject, didn't talk about the speech at all, and we spent most of the time reminiscing about, do you remember this and I remember that? And, one of the things that I'm most proud about being a friend of Emil's is not his accomplishments in land development or in home building, but in his generosity in the public sector, in countless ways. And so whenever I speak with him, I actually am honored. And, I always feel that all of us in this room, we have had such great lives and great businesses. Real estate, even in the last 5 or 6 years, it's still, a wonderful place to be a home builder or a master developer. And Emil has never, stopped giving back, even when things didn't look so good, even when things weren't great for him. So I just always like to, whenever I'm speaking with him, I always want the audience to know that, I respect him more for what he's done that you don't know about than anything you see at the Great Park or anything there. In terms of the New Home Company, we went public in January of this year. We're really a growing business. Pretty excited. I work with some incredibly talented people. I love being a home builder. We don't want to be like everybody else. I want to be in land-constrained markets where you get rewarded for great architecture and planning. I would like to take credit for the recession ending in Orange County. The first great master plan that came out of it was Lambert Ranch. Okay. With all respect to the Irvine Company, not planned by the Irvine Company, but it was when you're self-funded and you have a chance to buy a $48 million piece of ground, and in 2010, it was a pretty risky deal for us, and we opened it, we replanned, we re-entitled, And we opened in May of 2012, and it was the fastest selling project in the whole United States in the $1 million price range. We closed out first quarter of this year. And if you're ever out in Portola, go in and see it, because it was something that was very important to us. This idea of building homes for people and designing planned communities, I think it's something that is special, and I'm totally honored to be in this business. And I want everything we do in any price range, I want it to be something that's thoughtful and looks at their buyers and tries to do something new and different, hence the name of our company. And that worked very well. We just grand opened 2 projects with the Irvine Company at Orchard Hills, that if you haven't been to Orchard Hills yet, it's a pretty interesting place, and it's pretty exciting. And then in Fashion Island, we have kind of an interesting project on right next to the Marriott Hotel, where we're building 79 condominiums for the buyer profiles are Steve Cherm and Mike Ruane, and rich old white guys whose kids have grown up and are looking, to have more sex with their wives in a different way. So, and are willing to pay big time for it, okay? So, but we have 3 divisions in the state. We're growing a lot, and we're pretty excited about the future.
Well, I think I heard Larry frame or bookended the real estate cycle. He said, I got us into it with land source,
That's right.
and he got us out of it with land range.
There is some truth to that, yeah.
So Larry, let's see. Home sales are up. Prices are up astronomically just in the last year, and certainly since the low. Rental rates are up. Mortgage rates are pretty steady. And at the same time, the sales pace seems to have flattened at least somewhat right now. We've got the relative costs of a home in Orange County is incredibly higher than it is anywhere else in the country. I think Jonathan Lansner identified it at about 3.5 times an average house in the rest of the country. We're not quite even back to the 2006 peak in terms of overall home prices. So there's a lot of mixed signals out there. So the question for you, other than looking for older white guys that want to have more sex in their lives that you just described a minute ago,
Which, by the way, covers almost everyone in this room, I might add.
at least the guys, yeah. So talk about the market and who you're looking at. I mean, because you touched on it briefly with your condo projects, et cetera. But what are the trends that you're seeing in buyers in the market right now?
Well, first of all, look, when we had a company called John Lang Homes that we sold in '06, and Lang was a Western United States builder, so we had 13 divisions from Texas west. My background's market research, so I look at everything everywhere. Orange County is a very unique place. I mean, you all know that, but from a real estate perspective, Emil touched on it. 3 large landowners control almost everything that happens here. And there's 31 or 33 jurisdictions, but there really isn't a capital city that everything emanates out of. And so, in many cases, it's these 3 large landholders that set the trends for design, for land prices, for what's the future of an area. I don't know any other county in the United States that has that situation. And one thing it did is in the recession, land never got as low as it would have if it was just the market. If you think about it, when people couldn't buy houses, the apartments went crazy. People build a lot and are continuing to build a lot, very expensive. But in addition, the Irvine Company started their own building company because they weren't, they made a decision it was better for them to build than it was to lower prices down to where they could attract and hit the marketplace. So we're in a funny, Orange County is funny, unique, very different. From my perspective, every single piece of ground, whether it's Orange County or not, we look at and do tons of research. And God, I'm embarrassed to say when a couple of our staff are here, they hear me say it all the time, but real estate is a crazy industry that does, it's this large, the largest acquisition any individual ever makes is a home. I mean, it's not even close. There's nothing else. Who among us in their first house didn't, after they do it, get in fetal position in their apartment couch somewhere and say, oh my God, did you see, for 30 years what we're doing? I mean, it's a frightening process. And it is a process that people, entrepreneurs do with almost no research. Market studies cost $15,000. We paid $15,000 for our Lambert Ranch market study with a peak investment of $75 million. So, my feeling is builders that are going to excel in the marketplace need to identify their buyers and understand their buyers better than their competitors. And if they can do that, then they can get a team of design professionals to design something that is new and unique and fresh.
So let's stop there. So who are your buyers now? So who are you designing
Every
for?
site is different. Now, in the case of the Irvine deals, our buyers are primarily Asians, but not just, but mostly Asian Americans. Okay, but Asians.
And you're talking about your Irvine in
Lambert Ranch
Lambert.
and Orchard Hills is a little bit more the UN. It's a larger group, but still a large Asian population. At Meridian, our Fashion Island project,
right.
it's empty nesters who live in the Newport area, who live in a 5,000 square foot house, and the kids are grown up and they love the lifestyle, and they don't want to go to Beaumont to a Del Webb master plan, okay? And I always say, I would rather put a shotgun in my mouth than to do that, okay? So, but every piece of ground is unique. One thing that happened out of the recession, and I'd like to see what Emil thinks, is that when we hit a 7, 08, 09, home builders, not master developers, but home builders, pulled back architecturally everything they were doing. They focused on being low-cost manufacturers to ride out the market. And as we've come out of the recession, the real drivers for design have been the master plan communities, not the home builders. And we always were and will be drivers of design. So we somewhat are different than a lot of other builders. But, 20 years ago, master plans didn't help you design houses. They critiqued what you did. But that world's changed, wouldn't you say? And certainly at Great Park, you took a chance from understanding your buyers.
Sure.
Yeah. Maybe.
Well, I want to go back and address something that you said, which is that the market seems to be flattening, you said. And I think we have to be careful.
I knew you wouldn't let that go by.
Not because I want to increase land prices, no, but it's just, no, but seriously, I think you have to look and be careful about reading data. We're at the point in the cycle where we're starting to come out, and if you look at the new home market, builders come out and they do not want to overshoot. So they start to create momentum. And because of the fact that the market is trying to find its equilibrium between absorption and home prices, it takes a while before you find that equilibrium. And I think you see it more in the form initially of faster absorption, lower price appreciation. And then builders start finding where that pressure point is and the balance. And I think we're at that point where today, I can tell you at the Great Park neighborhood, we're starting to see it. Builders are intentionally starting to slow down and raise prices because they found that balance. They created that. And that, when you look at it in terms of just pure data, it looks like the market is slowing down, and it's really not. On the resale market, though, the same thing happens. You have to remember that we came out of a period where the resale market was basically distressed sale or have to sell. Today, you have people who really have the discretion to sell, and until equity is built up, and people say, I now can cash out my equity to move up, down, or laterally, they don't have to sell. So it looks like the resale market is also slowing down. I don't think the market's slowing down. I think the market is finding its equilibrium on both sides, which is actually a healthy thing to see. That's my view on that. So back to your question on your point, we took a different approach on the Great Park neighborhood, and we chose to design the homes ourselves and take them all the way through working drawings. We did it with a lot of consultation with builders and all that, so it wasn't done in abstract, and Tom Martin spent a lot of time with the builders getting their opinion. And we chose to do it for two reasons. We chose to do that, and when the builders came and were buying the land, they actually were in permit process with the city for two main reasons. One, or three actually. One, controlling the look, which you can do that through architecture guidelines. Two, it was very important for us to synchronize the grand opening of all 10 products with the park at the same time. And if we wouldn't have done that, we would not have had the ability to control 10 builders or 10 products opening on the same day and creating the splash we wanted to create. And third, and probably more important, if you look at the price of a home site in Irvine and how expensive it is, if the builder were to close on a home site for cash, and because we take a different approach than the company where they allow for rolling options, and then start designing the product and getting the process, there's about 8 to 9 months of carry cost that doesn't go to anybody. It just costs, $50,000. That's basically 60% of the margin of the builder plus. So we then allowed the builders to close and start construction on the same month and avoid that sunk cost that doesn't go in anybody's pocket. Those were the three main decisions why we did that.
Well, I do think, though, that yes, you did, but you also took, I would say, when Tom took the lead, Tom Martin, but you took a pretty dramatic approach to differentiate yourself from the rest of Irvine. You were intentionally creating a different feel.
Sure.
And that was a risky approach, and obviously it's worked, and it is true, Max. I do believe the market has actually not slowed. I mean, we opened 2 communities at Orchard Hills 2 weeks ago. Orchard Hills, if anyone was out there at Orchard Hills that opening weekend, it was crazy. I mean, crazy weekend. And we handed out 1,000 baseball hats with the new home company on it in 45 minutes. Now, either there's a lot of baseball fans in Orange County, or people will take anything if you give it to them. But
You've got hats for everybody here today, don't you?
Actually, Megan, do we? Oh, what the heck? Sorry. Anyways, it's hard for me to imagine that 6,000 to 8,000 people would go out on a hot Saturday day who have no interest in buying a home.
Yeah.
Okay? I mean, really?
Well, let me go to differentiation, because you obviously did the same thing with Lambert Ranch and all of that. But let's just make sure that at least we clarify our position. I've said it publicly, but this is actually a good time to say it. One of the challenges that you have when you come in the middle of a sea of ownership like the Irvine Company, where they have, in my opinion, done the best job in the world in terms of creating master plan community, and they have a certain product and certain approach, the worst thing that you could do is try to compete with them head to head. I mean, that is actually would be suicidal. And from my perspective, they perfected the Italian architecture better than the Italians. So we made the conscious decision to cater to a niche that might not necessarily want the same thing. And we took the risk on the fact that the niche is deep enough to want to have something a little bit different. Because we sat around the table and debated a lot. You don't go head to head with it. That's a mistake. So that's really why we decided to differentiate ourselves and do a couple of things different. And as this will tell you, whether it's you go and look at different homes or you look at different styles, it tells you that people's tastes are not the same. There are certain people who would like one home versus the other. There's certain people who would like to live in this community versus the other. And all we were trying to do is hit a little bit of a niche that has not been taken.
So who are your buyers now, Emil? Larry went through talking about who he's selling to in the different places. Who are your buyers in the Great Park?
Well, look, the predominant buyer in Irvine is the Asian buyer. And I would say that ends up being Chinese, Koreans, Indians, and Middle Easterns.
And are those all first-time buyers in the States? Are they're coming from?
No, some of them are local buyers, some of them are from the outside.
I'd say most of them are have lived here a
Have
while.
lived there.
And I would not say they're from outside.
Good.
Well, yeah, we've seen some from the outside, but honestly, you wouldn't know because they come in with somebody local, so you wouldn't know really where the money is coming from and all that. But we are not seeing the same percentage. We're seeing probably about 75%. And I attribute the fact that we're seeing some more local buyers is because we chose to build a single-story home. And that allowed now a move-down buyer in Irvine to go, who wants to move down and go to a single-story home, to have an opportunity to live in the same community as their children or grandchildren. And we, I think, captured some of those buyers as a result of that. Rather than buying a single-story home in Beaumont, they can now buy it in other Great Park neighborhood. But that's the market. And I have my own opinion on that. I think I get asked all the time, does that mean that now the market is going to shift and all we're going to see is the market shift to a more Asian resident? And I think you're going to see some of that. But I think that the reason why we haven't seen the local buyer yet is because of the point I made before. Equities got destroyed. And until people free up equity to move, because we are not in a first-time buyer market. We are in a move up, move down, move lateral market. And until people free up their equity, they're not going to move. They're not going to buy. And I think we are now, the good news is we're into a second year of double-digit appreciation, and you're going to start seeing equities freed up, and you're going to, in my opinion, start seeing more of a local buyer be more mobile.
So are many of your buyers coming with houses that they have to sell? Are these contingent buyers, or are they?
We don't take contingent buyers.
Okay, so you're doing everything.
And, I was going to say, I would say, if you forgot nationality for a second, you thought, who's buying? It's families. And it's families who are well capitalized, and it's families who care greatly about education. So education, I think the best thing the Irvine Company ever did was make a long-term commitment to the schools of Irvine. And, one of Emil's challenges that he's been very successful at is selling the quality of education when the school isn't there yet. Every time you hear Emil speak, he talks about the kind of community or education and schools he's going to have. And he always says, I look over at the 5 Points people, he always talks about the best schools anywhere, any place. Think of these buyers. They're family buyers. They're going to a place to raise their kids. They care greatly about the school districts. They also can live in a lot of places. So if you don't provide them with the parks and the architecture and the thoughtful stuff, then they can wait. Now, we had 169 buyers at Lambert Ranch. We had one person have financial cancellation problems. That's an amazingly low can rate. These people are incredibly well-financed when they get there.
Well, you heard it here first, so you know that you don't need to put your house on the market anytime soon. Help me thank our two distinguished real estate experts.
And as well, a special thank you to Max Gardner for great moderation. Thanks, Max. Thank you all very much. Safe home.
The Orange County Forum is brought to you through the generous support of the Orange County Register and our sustaining partners. For more information about the Orange County Forum, call 949-588-9884. The Orange County Forum is a nonprofit organization. Your contributions are tax deductible.